and sometimes they can help, but I don't want it to hinder in any way. We're talking now in part 2, the appointed times for Jerusalem. The appointed times for Jerusalem. We talked in the first session about the times of the Gentiles, and if you go to slide 2, we were focusing, our anchor scripture was from Luke 21, verse 24. Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And I just mentioned at the start I think an important prophetic truth or insight, that what Jesus does here is he takes Daniel chapter 2, which is this vision, this image that we looked at this morning, the head of gold all the way down to the feet of iron and clay, that it represents the sweep of the Gentile age, the major powers that are succession kingdoms from Babylon forward, and especially some influence over Jerusalem and the people of Israel, whether they're in the land or outside of the land or such. Babylon, Media, Persia, down through Greece and Rome and such. They had a big impact on what happened to Israel. And we're going to look and focus this afternoon on Daniel chapter 9, how it sort of parallels and relates to Daniel chapter 2. If Daniel chapter 2 is the times of the Gentiles, Daniel chapter 9, it is all about within the time of the Gentiles, the appointed times of Jerusalem, determined, the set times that God has given. And as we read in Daniel 9, these are some very definite Hebrew words that are used to describe this. As we look at the scripture from Daniel 9, of course, Daniel, he starts out in the chapter and he says, look, we got a letter, a message from the prophet Jeremiah, who was still back in the land. And, he had already prophesied, not once, but twice in the book of Jeremiah. You find where he prophesies that the exile to Babylon, of Jerusalem and Judea, following on the exile of the northern kingdom of Israel, that the exile will last for 70 years. And he says, go ahead and fix your gardens, fix the drapes, the windows on your, the curtains on your windows and all. You're going to be there a few years, but not so long. And you're going to be free to come back in 70 years. Now, what does Daniel do? Does he, he gets happy and whatever, and he takes out a 70-year lease on a house and ready to go back after, when it ends, or what is? No, it says he starts fasting and praying and seeking God. Why? He was not fully satisfied. Okay, this exile is for 70 years. But God, I have a burden for my people. I want to know when all the exiles and all the destructions of Jerusalem are going to be over. This one is fine, but somehow he knew human nature, the nature of his people and all. And just as Moses had said in his swan song, Deuteronomy 32, I've been around God enough, and I've been around the people of God enough that I know we're going to make mistakes. And sometimes we're going to get judged and corrected by God. And Daniel had a burden to fast and pray and says, okay, this exile is going to be 70 years, but when will all the exiles of my people, and he knew it all centered around Jerusalem and the centrality of Jerusalem and God's purposes for them and their faith and the worship before God. And he wants to know when it's all over. And he starts fasting and praying and interceding, incredible intercessory prayer. It's always, God, you've been faithful to us. You find this sort of narrative over and over in Psalms. Moses does it in Deuteronomy 32. It's in Psalms. It's here. It's there. Where someone gets that right attitude and that humble attitude and says, God, you've always been faithful to us.